5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Hello everybody, it is Sylvie. Welcome back to the TBR Diaries. I hope you're doing good. Today's video is going to be my November TBR for Non-Fiction November, which, if you are somehow not familiar with, is an event that has been going for, I want to say, 4 years now. It's hosted by a book olive, and it is a reading event focused on reading more non-fiction than you usually would. I used to really love reading non-fiction. I used to read non-fiction every month, at least one or two, and then I started a master's degree, and all of my non-fiction reading was focused on my master's, so I haven't read anything non-fiction outside of that in probably 2 years at this point. Now, I have a big stack of books next to me here, but the only book that I am determined to read in November for Non-Fiction November is this one. It is The Body Keeps the Score by Bessel van der Kolk. This is on my autumnal TBR, so in my head I've got to get this read this month because it's already on my TBR stack for this autumn season. This is a book about trauma and how trauma is kind of stored in the body as much as it is in the mind, and the connection between those two things. I am a little bit intimidated by this book. I am a little bit intimidated by the subject matter. I'm not quite sure how I'm gonna fare with it, but I am somebody who has always preferred to look at things through a sort of scientific lens. You know, I love me some data. I love to quantify the unquantifiable. That was literally my master's dissertation. So I'm sure that I will find this a very valuable read, but we'll see how we go with it. I'm planning on reading it potentially over the whole month. I'm not sure. I'm just not quite sure how this book is going to affect me personally, but I've heard so many good things about this. I'm sure it's going to be a very valuable read. So that was the only book that is on my definite TBR for November, and I have here a pile of possibilities. This is 7 more books. I have much more non-fiction on my TBR than this, but I had a look through. I picked out some books that I think are kind of, calling to me at the moment, that I think are going to be very interesting to read, that I'm in the mood for, and I'm just going to go through them pretty much at random and show you what I might end up reading in November. This is Buzz by Thor Hanson. This is a natural history of bees, and I've heard good things about Thor Hanson and his natural history books. He's got a couple more that I think look very interesting, but I'm going to read this first, see if I get on with his style before I pick any more up, because God knows I do not need more books on my TBR. I have a bit of a tricky relationship with the natural history books. I'm actually quite picky because I don't like the ones that are too broad, even though they sound really interesting and they're full of really interesting ideas. If anything is too kind of broad, either in time or in scope, in the things that it's talking about, I can't really connect with that. I actually need something that kind of gets into the nitty gritty and is actually a little bit hard to understand, but that is annoyingly the kind of non-fiction that I prefer. Even though I know nothing about natural history, I have no background knowledge beyond the kind of layperson's background knowledge and some things that I've picked up. It's not as though I have a background in natural history, in ecology, in anything like that. But we will see how I get on with this. This has very tiny font, which does scare me because there's a lot of words on a page, but it has lots of pictures, which I really enjoy, especially something like this where I imagine it's going to be talking about lots of different species. I like to have lots of things to look at so that I know what I'm reading about, sort of thing. This is Fundamentals, 10 Keys to Reality by Frank Wilczek. This I spoke about recently in my most recent book haul video, and this is a book about physics. Again, I don't have a background in physics. It scares me. I don't understand it. It's all big and weird and theoretical, but I really enjoy physics. This is, I think, going to be a fairly easy read. It's broken down into 10 concepts, and then he's explaining these 10 different concepts, which I like because it's specific, but it's not too much about any one thing. So I'm looking forward to this. This is kind of higher up on my mental priority list of what I'm going to read in November. Next up is The Shapeless and Ease by Samantha Harvey. This is a book about insomnia and not sleeping, which I have had an eternal struggle with throughout my life. So I think if I'm already dealing with trauma in the other book, I may not want to reach for this. That might be a little bit much, but we will see. I've had this on my TBR for ages now. I've heard good things. And again, I think this is more of a biography memoir, sort of a non-fiction. I could be wrong, but not sleeping is certainly something I can relate to, so I'll be interested to see what this has to say. This is The Butchering Art by Lindsey Fitzharris. This is a look at medicine and surgery in the Victorian period. Disease was what I do in archaeology. That was what my degree was on. Medicine obviously goes hand in hand with disease, so this is just something I have like a bit of an academic interest in, and I just find the history of medicine and disease very interesting in general. So, and I know the Victorian period was like a big deal for medicine, so I feel like I should actually learn some history about it. This is Living with the Gods by Neil MacGregor, and this is one that I think might be a bit too broad. As I was saying earlier, I like things that get really specific and really detailed. I think because this is a global view of people and their relationship with gods and religion, I think, and spirituality. It's been a long time since I bought this book, so that might actually be not quite correct. But because this is a global view, it might be a bit too broad and it might not go kind of in depth enough. But because it is not science, that might not be a problem for me. I am not religious myself, but I think the reasons why people are religious is very interesting to me, hence my interest in this book. This is Heroes by Stephen Fry. It is his retelling of heroic Greek myths. I read Mythos and really enjoyed his style of retelling the stories. And I hesitate to call this nonfiction because it is but it isn't, in a way. Like, it's not original fiction from Stephen Fry. So in that sense, I feel like it leans more towards the nonfiction than the fiction. But it's not like a historical account of these myths. It is a straightforward, I assume, retelling of the myths. But it's on my TBR regardless. But like, let me know what you think, because I think that's an interesting question as to whether this is non-fiction or not. But anyway, like I say, I enjoyed Mythos, and I have this, and I also have Troy sitting on my shelf, and I'd like to get to them because I did enjoy Mythos when I read it. So that is on my list. The final book on my TBR is one that I definitely intend to read, and that is Terry Pratchett's biography, A Life with Footnotes, by Rob Wilkins. Rob Wilkins was his assistant for much of the later part of his career. I've said it before, I love Terry Pratchett, I love his books. I have a lot of feelings about Terry Pratchett. This is gonna make me cry, partly because Terry Pratchett's work meant a lot to me, partly because that was one of the things that like me and my mum and my brother all shared, was a love for Terry Pratchett's books, and obviously my mum is dead, so I feel like it's going to bring up a lot of feelings. So good job I'm reading the trauma book at the same time. I picked this up yesterday. It is about a month late because Waterstones has been having issues, but it's finally in my hands. I did get the fancy special edition. It has, I think it's got a talk at the back that Terry Pratchett gave that's previously unpublished, that is not in the other edition of this book. And because I love Terry Pratchett, I thought I'd get the fancy edition when I pre-ordered it months ago. But anyway, all that to say, I'm looking forward to this. I did read the first couple of pages when I got home after I picked it up yesterday, and this is just going to hit me in my feelings. This is going to make me feel a lot of things, but I'm looking forward to reading it. Because like I say, Terry Pratchett and his books have been a massive, massive impact on my reading life, and I feel like generally almost like his books have been there since my childhood for me. I started reading them, or rather my mum read them to me and my brother when we were small, the first few, and then I've been reading them since I was like, I want to say 10, so they've been very consistent. I'm looking forward to reading this, even though I know it's going to make me sad. So this is the other book that's definitely on my TBR, but I'm not pressuring myself to get it read, so we'll see how we go. And that is all the books on my non-fiction November TBR. Like I say, The Body Keeps the Score and the Pratchett biography are for sure up there on my TBR, but we'll see what else I get to. I would like to read a book a week and read 4 books for non-fiction November, but I don't want to rush through them, so I think I might read several and dip in and out of them. I'm not sure, we'll see how it goes. But I'm looking forward to non-fiction November. I did not take part last year because I was doing my masters. I was reading a lot of non-fiction for academic purposes, and I want to get back into reading more non-fiction again now that I'm no longer studying. So let me know if you're taking part in non-fiction November. Let me know what you're reading. Let me know if I should prioritise any of the books on my list. All that good stuff. I hope that you've enjoyed this video, and I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.